Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Volta TST. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared on YouTube. So please be mindful of the comments you make during the call. They are going to be public. So first up, I just want to continue on the topic of the HCD chart. We have made some changes this week. We moved the default chart to be used by any kind of Volta deployment to be the Bitnami HCD and Bitnami Kafka charts. With those charts, we saw some performance issues in the AT&T 1024 ONU job, and that prevented us in using those charts for the scale jobs. So for the scale jobs, we are still using a local copy of the old incubator charts. But I'll let Matteo maybe give us an update further on this topic.
Yeah, so on Friday, the incubator repository was due to be removed from upstream, so we had to move everything to the Bitnami chart. As of now, Kind Volta deploys those by default. We are still seeing issues at scale that we are going to investigate in the next coming days, and as soon as we solve the issues, we'll move the scale jobs to the Bitnami chart as well. One thing that I think is worth mentioning is that by default, the Bitnami chart enable authentication for a TCD, and that made me realize that as now we are using an unsecure connection between Volta and the TCD. So maybe that's something else we want to look at as part of this migration.
And isn't there a general security issue between all the components in Volta? And there's always been the argument, oh, it's all going to be in one data center, and therefore it's going to be behind a firewall, so it's not an issue. I personally think it might be an issue, and we want some sort of certification between each component. But there's been kind of both sides of that argument. And if we're going to say we're all behind a firewall, then I don't think authentication is required. If we're going to do security, I think we have to think of it as more than just HCD.
Absolutely agree.
So my thought is, and I think some of the operators share this this thought, is that we don't really need to secure internal microservice to microservice communication. At least this is, as far as I know, DT's perspective. On this, we need to secure the outwards facing facades of our system, meaning the gRPC on the northbound, the REST APIs of ONOS on the northbound if they get called, or the OpenOLT channel. Those we need to ensure that they are authenticated and secure, but not the internal ones. So while it might be true that it would be good to have, I think it's a fairly low priority item at the moment. Okay. Anything else, Theo, on this?
No, that's it. We haven't started working on debugging the Bitnami charts yet because we were busy working on the stack support in the pipeline. That up, so I anticipate starting the work on the Bitnami charts in the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thanks for sharing, Theo. I did have a look at a few jobs of the Bitnami chart, and one of them seemed to be hitting the issue of the timeout in the core that we were seeing a while ago. And that would mean read-write timeouts with the TCD, but I have not investigated further, so it needs a further study on exactly what's going on.
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit more, the main difference between the two charts is that the Bitnami one doesn't support that the TCD keeps all the data in memory, but it always writes to disk, and that is something we were going to look at anyway, regardless of the chart. So that work is going to be part of this Bitnami investigation, and that will include also using addresses into the container.
Okay, I think we're losing Matteo a little bit, but he's saying that basically writes to disk, and so we need to do that investigation that needs a persistent volume. So that's what we're probably going to look into in the upcoming days before the 2.6. But our goal is to have everything migrated to the Bitnami, etcd, and Kafka before the release of 2.6. Perfect. Okay. Any question, any other thing on this, any other element on this topic before we proceed further? Okay, then if not, next topic is a change that was proposed by Radisys and Deutsche Telekom to the Python OpenONU adapter. It's a minor change, but allows in-order message processing and not just that, but even more than that, the wait for, if needed, for a message response from the adapter before sending the reply to the core. But I let Amit from Radisys give some thoughts on this and gives a presentation, a little bit of overview, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea, for summarizing it. So could you just open the the great review?
For some reason, Garrett from Europe is fairly slow lately.
Yeah, as Andrea already summarized, right? So the change basically is in the Kafka intercontainer library, where it receives messages from the bus and calls the registered callback functions for handling those messages. So the change is that for each message received, we are getting it processed in a different task or a different stack altogether. With the earlier code, the behavior was that once you receive a message, till you don't send back the response for that message, which in some cases is needed, right? So if the caller sends a reply to topic, that means he is expecting a reply for that message. So till that message is not sent back, the next message from the bus can't be picked up. And this was causing problem for certain use cases, like one which we are trying to solve, wherein we want to get information from the ONU and return it to the core, but synchronously, right? So as soon as we get the API from the core, we want to go down to the ONU, get the information, and then only return back to the core. With the existing code, this was not possible, but now because we are handling each message in its own stack, right? With the twisted infrastructure, this becomes possible. And we have tested this change. So this change is in the vOLTHA repo itself. So we built the ONU adapter with this change, and we ran the AT&T workflow scale test, and it ran fine. We ran it I think 4 or 5 times and ran fine. And what I also hear from Chip is that he has also done some tests on this with this vOLTHA change, and he hasn't found any problems till now on this. So any questions on this?
2 questions. One, is this making synchronous processing in the adapter? And 2, how's this also deal with, or is this behavior different, the same, or how's it going to be migrated into the Go version of the adapter?
So the Go version of the adapter should not have this behavior, right? Because this was coming from the two-state framework.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying the Go version's already in line with what you're doing now in the Pi.
Yeah.
And neither of them is really synchronizing behavior at this point. I worry that we put synchronization or kind of serialization in these adapters, and that's going to impede performance. But that's not the case.
Sorry, David, I'm not getting that point.
So it's not that we're getting a message, processing that message to completion, and then going to the next message.
That's correct, yeah.
Because if we're doing that, we're serializing all message processing, and that could have an impact on performance. Because there are messages that we can process concurrently.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, as long as we still have
Yeah.
concurrency down in the message processing. I'm
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If no other questions, that's it from my side. Andrea, you can take it back.
Yeah, sure. One thing that I wanted to discuss is that this there was a requirement to backport this to the 2.5 release. This is I personally don't have an objection to that, even though it has to be said that this is somewhat of a feature rather than a bug. What are you guys' thoughts about this?
Who's using 2.5 that's going to affect?
DT.
That's what I figured. Being that they're the only ones that are doing it.
Not sure about Turk Telecom though.
Have we run any of the performance or scale tests with this fix?
I did run 4 or 5, I don't remember, runs of the 21632, meaning the 2 OLT, 16 PON ports, 32 ONUs each, the 1024 total ONUs for the AT&T job with 8 adapters, and it seemed to work fine. What I would suggest is that if this is the final version of the patch, what I can do, and we at ONF can do, is probably build an image. And if Suchitra, Girish, and Surf and Matteo agree with this, we could put it into our pod configurations and scale job configuration and let it run for a couple of days in all the jobs. And that would give us perception if there is any sort of failure. Is that something that we are willing to do? Looking at the ONF team more than others.
I have a question before that, Andrea.
Sure, go ahead, Ken.
What are we backporting? Are we backporting just this fix, or are we trying to backport the get extension, which is really the feature that show this problem? So if we're not backporting the get extension, then why do we need this fix?
That is a good point, Amit.
Yeah, so we are still working on the feature for the get.ext value. So yeah, ideally it would be good if that entire feature can be backported to 2.5.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I think we 2.5 has been released, it becomes bug fixes at this point. Else, there's no point in the release. I
would agree. I would agree with what David just said.
It's also that 2.5 is not an LTS, and there are not that many differences between 2.5 and 2.6, and 2.6 is going to be out in a little over a month.
If I can be the advocate of the devil here, I think the reason is that Deutsche Telekom is going to go in production with 2.5. And that is why they would like to have this within the release. I'm not for one or the other. This fix, I don't particularly care. The whole feature, it's a lot of things to backport, but the reasoning behind is that they're going to go in production with that. Nothing prevents us in not changing 2.5, but updating, bringing in the feature in the vOLTHA, just releasing another vOLTHA, open a new Python version, and the DT team would have to just use that version instead of the older one. We don't touch 2.5. What they're going to be using is 2.5 enhanced.
But again, the issue is not this specific change, this one removal of the yield. The issue is the minute you start backporting that feature, there's I believe, proto changes. And so now you've taken 2.5, you essentially made it potentially incompatible. It's a big change. I mean, there's nothing stopping DT from backporting whatever it wants in a private version, right? It's open source. But I'm kind of against saying we're going to backport a feature.
Agreed.
It's not yet even completed implementation to 2.5.
Yeah, that is why I was suggesting just the use of different release of the Python version. Also because if, to the best of my knowledge, nothing went in between 2.5 and 2.6 in the Python version.
As I said, this patch that we went over, this deletion of the yield, I think I could say fine. I could almost call that a bug fix, right? But that's the thing we release. I wouldn't release a 2.5 with the set git extension.
And me personally, I won't even release this patch because it's without that feature, it doesn't do anything. It's definitely it's an improvement, but it's
a fair point.
It doesn't add much.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And again, there's nothing to stop DT from taking a 2.5 release and adding these patches, but I think there are things that go in 2.6.
And David, I don't think it's even adding these to the 2.5 backporting the 2.5 patches. You just change the versions of the stuff that you need. You just update the version of the Python in the chart that you deploy, and that's it.
Yes, they could cut a new release of the adapter and put it in their chart. Absolutely. But for the set git extension, that's maybe more than one chart. In fact, there's some core changes, I think, as well as some adapter changes.
Yeah, no, those I'm not sure we want to backport. Actually, I'm convinced we don't want to backport the proto changes to 2.5 because that's basically effectively doing another release. So that's a no.
So
Andrea,
if I could, sorry, yeah, if I could share some thoughts on that. So I think I would agree with David and Ken and actually all the others. So we could submit all the changes to the 2.6, and for DT's use cases, we could merge only those changes onto 2.5 and use it for production.
Yes, the caveat there, of course, is DT is now going to be using a fork for production. And so bug fixes won't be backported to 2.5, particularly bug fixes around those features will not be put in 2.5. It'll be put in 2.6 and backported by DT or their partners to 2.5. I mean, I'll be honest, they can do it, but it is going to be more work for DT and their partners because essentially it's an unsupported release.
Any other thoughts, Surf?
No, I think I agree with David and Ken. Officially, we're not doing another release of 2.5.
So
Sounds
that
good.
would say align with Ken's point that taking this the yield patch and backporting it would not happen either because it's no value. Correct? Is that correct, Saurabh?
Agreed. Yes, agreed.
As David pointed out, nothing prevents us in cutting another release of the adapter with this change and the get set external value in. No issue there. So please, Amit, that is definitely a solution that you need to take into account as soon as you have these features put into the.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to cut another release of the adapter anyway when we release 2.6. Right?
Yeah,
so,
indeed. But if those features come in before, they might cut the release, and if no other feature come in after that, we just can use that one.
Correct. Yeah.
Release versions
Andrea,
are free.
Just to make sure, you want to release the adapter from the master branch.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
The request still stands if we are okay to building an image on the master branch and running it through our CI pipeline a couple of times.
I'm sorry, I got confused there for a minute. We're talking about creating a new release?
Just a version.
A new container release, David.
Of the OLT adapter. Well, that's a release. What number are you going to call?
Whatever it is, just.
I'm confused because again, so we're going to have a 2.5.x of the OLT adapter that no one's going to be using except DT. Is that what you're suggesting? It's not going to be in any of the official charts?
David, both the OLT adapter and the open a new adapter are their version are not tied to the vOLTHA release version.
Understood. So we're going to create an intermediate release of the adapters that is not going to be used in any of the official charts.
That happens like
all
10
the time.
times per release.
All right.
And if
So
nothing else goes into,
pardon,
as long as that release, sorry, as long as the release of the component is done on the master branch, there is no issue in releasing versions that will get deprecated before we make an official vOLTHA release.
So in theory, they were both branched at 2.5, and if you're going to release on the 2.5 tree,
no, that's why I asked.
No, David, from the master branch. So I'm gonna just, if they want to do
but the master branch should be called 2.6 right now. It's 2.6 dev.
It's just it's the one you see here. It's just a number. It's just a number. It could be 4.5.6.
I understand. It's just
they can just release a 2.6.0 and use it, and then we're gonna cut the release on 2.6.1.
Yeah, I get that. I guess the question is, why are we? And I get that it happens all the time. We're cutting a release. In theory, it's not going to be used as part of a larger release. And I'm just wondering about that. That just if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it or whatever, it doesn't make a sound.
So Andrea, you want to create this image so that it can be tested more rigorously, right?
Yeah, but that is an internal image, Amit. That's not even important. It's I can build it. It's going to be under my private Docker hub. It's no issue.
Yeah, then I think that's fine, right? Because I think what we just said was that DT keeps the 2.5, as in builds on top of 2.5 and keeps the changes internally. So
okay,
we don't need to release the ONU adapter as well.
Okay, sounds good. And if anybody's interested in using it, it can use the 2.6 release.
Yep.
Okay. Again, is it fine if we run it through our Scale and Jenkins jobs for a couple of nights? Okay.
I don't think that's necessary because it's not really related anything to the hardware. It's more of inter-container communication, and I think you have already verified that with the Scale test jobs with BBSIM.
Okay, maybe I'll create the image and run it a few times on the Scale, maybe just a night or something, just a day or something to get full validation on every workflow.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Anything else on this topic before we move forward? Okay, sounds good. Before we go to the last topic, which is the vOLTHA 2.6 code freeze and release, Matteo, do you want to give us an update on what the multi-stack, on how the multi-stack work is going?
It's going well. Probably today or tomorrow, I'm going to schedule jobs with the multi-stacks for every workflow, and the result will be available soon. We had some very promising forest runs. We were able to scale it up to significant numbers. After a certain points, we still see failures that we need to investigate. But so far, we have been able to run, depending on the workflow, with 3-4 stacks with 1,000 NU on each stack and seeing promising results.
Okay, thanks. That's great. A few changes went in to support this multi-stack, and also thanks to Circant, who did a change for parameterizing the OLT adapter topic. There's a few other things here and there. Huge thanks to Matteo, who's putting everything together. Please be on the lookout. We might do a specific topic next week with the presentation of the official results on Jenkins. So
just one thing, there are 2 patches that are still to be merged. One is a documentation patch and one is on kind vOLTHA to make it easier for everyone to deploy the multi-stack. They've been now running on the Scale setup for more than a week. So if people want to take a look and review especially the kind vOLTHA patch, that would be good. With people, I mostly mean David.
That's funny.
You are the God and Savior of kind vOLTHA, so.
No, I think the devil might be the better term, but okay.
I just put them. I just put them here. The docs, I think it's perfectly fine, Theo. If anybody wants to put another pair of eyes on it, it's much appreciated. The kind vOLTHA one, I think it's fine, but David, you might take a look, and anybody who has some spare time, just throw some eyes on it and see what the outcome is. A few reviews. It is working, meaning that Theo is capable of getting these results through these patches. So it's I think it proves them, at least from that point of view. There might be some stylistical or other things, but from a working perspective. What? Sorry?
No, I was just gonna say that it's. I verified that it's working with all the 3 workflows, both with the multi-stack and the single stack. But I know that a lot of people have very different workflows from what I have. So if people can and make sure it works with their workflow too, that would be good.
Okay. That's good. Thanks, Theo. Okay, next up is a discussion on the dates for the 2.6 release. So in discussion with ONF, the ONF team, the date for the officially the date for the release would be December 31st. But given the holiday season and the ONF shutdown, which happens Monday the 21st, we are aiming for a tentative release date of Friday, December the 18th. And that with a code freeze date 10 days before, effectively, Wednesday the 9th of December. That gives us still a few weeks of development, around 3 weeks of development, 3.5, and gives us effectively 4 weeks, a month before the release itself. Before I go further, is there any thoughts on this timeline? Is there any objection? Anybody has anything to say? No? Okay. One topic that sprang out of this discussion was the choice of the OpenONU adapter. We have decided that the OpenONU Go adapter will be released with 2.6. And the options are that if in the remaining weeks of November, we get it to a point where it passes all the tests that we have upstream in Jenkins, it will become the default. But if we don't feel comfortable enough to call it the default adapter because it is still failing some tests, or we have not seen enough good results, we're still going to release it and call it a beta release. Because effectively, I can say that the DT workflow and the AT&T workflow, I am pretty confident that they will work. But the multi-Tcon support is just now being integrated by Grish. And there are a few other features that are getting integrated by the Adtran folks, and those still need to be merged. And the multicast from Netsia to make the Turk Telecom support and the workflow actually succeed and pass. So that is the big question mark. And that is one of the reasons we're still evaluating which one to be called the default in the 2.6 release. In any case, we are going to release with both adapters, meaning we're going to tag both adapters. And we're going to have the release with both of them. And which one will be the default will be decided probably around November the 30th. Bear in mind that again, as I said, the AT&T and Deutsche Telekom workflows we are pretty confident on. And we have seen incredibly good numbers at scale. In the sense that we shave off around 30% of the time of bringing up the whole system with subscribers for both AT&T and Deutsche Telekom with 1024 ONUs. And we have one adapter instance only instead of 8, which is again very good. And so that is the current status. As I said, the final decision will probably be made around November the 30th, with independently of which one will be chosen, both of them will be available as toggleable options, meaning that if you want, you can decide to deploy the Python version. If you want, you can decide with just a toggle of a parameter to deploy the Go version. It's just change of an image, basically. There's no effective difference there. Any questions? No? Okay. So that's all I had for today's meeting. Is there any other topic that we want to go over? Okay, just one thing came to mind. Please do make sure to keep your JIRAs up to date. We are getting closer to the code freeze date. So please make sure to always keep your JIRAs up to date and maybe do a pass once in a while in the issues that you have assigned to yourself, that you have reported, or that you're working on, to make sure that they are up to date. And if anything is done, please close it. The usual drill. So just to keep everybody in check with their Jira stories and not have them, and not have the final list being very random, and we need to spend a lot of time working on it. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great day or end of day for those in Europe. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.